All right, there was a new chapter of Super, and it was pretty much disappointing, just like 57. Not just like 57, but it was not exactly too wonderful. And I will get into that in a moment. Let me just turn this thing off. I'd say probably the only good thing that came out of it is that it wasn't as all over the place as 57, because with 57 we had a sequence of itty bitty fights that all kind of didn't really get any time to digest. Whereas here it's just the fight with Saganbo and then the other person that Tien was fighting that his group could not take out. And so they had to be saved by the main character. Yeah, the consensus forum's a really aggravating place to go to because they'll write nonsense such as, "Oh, they put the soldiers there so that the other characters can beat somebody this arc. Is that why we had the supposed main character show up and take out multiple members of that group?" That's why a lot of times when people write fan fictions or kind of try to dabble with writing for this series, they'll often leave out Goku and Vegeta because even they internally know that the only time you can really have stakes in this series anymore is to not have those two characters involved because they've upped their power so far above the rest of the group. The cast is not even entertaining anymore. But yeah, the only thing it has over 57 is that it was more focused. They weren't trying to play all over the place. 57 really should have been two chapters. Just the amount of stuff that was covered in that one chapter was too much, I think. Because again, they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, where they're so afraid to have any continuous period that isn't sticking Goku in our faces that they found themselves trying to rush a bunch of fights, and it just doesn't work. At least I don't think it works. I know the fans will eat it up, but no, a lot of people are talking about Ultra Instinct. Oh my God, he can access it at will. This is bad. It's bad because it's a stupid form that continues to overpower the lead character and thereby make the rest of the cast unable to do anything. And the only difference now is that instead of it just randomly appearing, it's now going to just be his go-to transformation whenever something. I would love, and I know this isn't going to happen, but for 59, it would be terrific if instead of that form actually doing anything, Moro just grabs him and just sucks all the energy out of him. Like it's just a whole chapter of him running away from Moro, and then Vegeta shows up at the end. Whatever his new technique is. Because you have people who are actually saying that it's very likely we're not going to see Vegeta show up until after the main battle as some kind of gag. Like, I just trained and I've gotten so much stronger, but you took out more before I could get here. I guess the arc is over. I wouldn't put it past them to do that because they prioritize comedy over any kind of decent storytelling. So I was making sure the audio was working. I mean, remember the Future Trunks arc? They sit here and have you believe that we're going to see the that alternate timeline go back to being a peaceful place once the main villain is taken out, and then instead we get some weird uh, new character that's supposedly more powerful than anybody else ever introduced vaporize the entire universe and make all the efforts of the main cast for the last, what was that, 20 episodes for nothing? No, they're going to find a way to screw this up too. I wouldn't put it past them. I'd say that the form thing is just what people are, because people know how the fans are. All they do is complain about forms. That's the main thing they get excited over. Not what character is going to be involved, not who's going to fight. Nope, just forms, forms. Is this person going to get a new transformation? I'm telling you, when God was revealed the first time, I wasn't opposed to it because it had literally been, what was it, 20 years since there was a canonical transformation. But now they're just getting revealed left and right. There was literally a new form every single arc of Zuber, and it looks like we're going to get another one in this arc too. And that's what the fans are embracing. When I think of what I'd like to see in a saga or an arc or a season, whatever term I'm going to use, would be some better usage of the other characters. Forms really don't factor in, especially when they've often been the main excuse or reason for why the rest of the cast can't keep up. So I'm just not interested. But of course, that doesn't mean they won't put another one in there. I just realized that in Super we had God, then we had God Super Saiyan, then we had Ultra Instinct. Well, before that we had the Rose form and whatever that thing Trunks had. Oh my god! And then that thing that Vegeta has. And then somebody might say, "Oh, well, Z had forms too." Yeah, but the point is, people who are sick of them are now were not sick of them when it was just God that was unveiled. Because I remember when Resurrection F, between when that film came out, uh, so that 2-year period, there were a lot of people who were speculating that that was going to be the debut of Vegeta using the God form. That's before we saw the blue hair version. And I welcome that. It would be nice if they both have this new form, and then we get to see them use that for either a couple of years or some other continuous period. But of course, that wasn't good enough, so they had to pull out another one. I don't know. It just kind of aggravating that that's the only way they can tell a story anymore. That's why I was kind of a little excited to see what they would do with Vegeta, because the way it appears from what we've seen is that they're probably not going to rely on the form for him. But whatever he's going to end up doing is going to be some technique, which I welcome, because for whatever reason, techniques have been put completely on the back burner in favor of forms. And I mentioned before, one of the things that the Saiyan arc of Z alluded to was the fact that on Earth there's a higher tendency for the warriors there to learn moves that are stronger than themselves. And Toriyama dropped that idea so quickly because he knew if that idea was allowed to fester, then it would be harder to explain why the Saiyans were the only ones who could ever do something. Because that's why when Goku fired the Kamehameha wave at Raditz, he was surprised, but he's like, how can this person with this power level have this move that's this much stronger? I really would prefer to see more of that, where we have like a David and Goliath thing with the villains, where they're stronger, but then the cast can come up with moves to do things against them. It would be a nice change of pace. Oh, and the other thing, and the reason I have that particular picture as the thumbnail is because there was an overarching theme of this chapter for other characters to remark on how basically nothing they do matters. You had Piccolo saying, "We trained for however long and we still couldn't do it." And Goku's like, "What are you talking about? I can't even recognize you." You had Yamcha say some things never change, and then Tien was expressing shock at Goku's strength. It was really interesting to see all these different characters basically just become self-aware of the fact that they are in a series where no matter how hard they try, no matter what they do, barring maybe wishing themselves to become Saiyans, they just won't be able to keep up ever. No, it's really, and I guess if I were being positive, I would say, oh, maybe that's Toyotaro foreshadowing that in the next arc, or at some point during this arc, they'll do something useful. But it's not going to happen. It's going to be Goku in his new form fights villain. Maybe Vegeta might help, and that's about it. Because I've actually seen some people who, in defense of Vegeta not being the one who's allowed to win ever, despite training just as much as the supposed main protagonist, they're saying, "Oh no, he got his win against Cell." Like, really, his victory was shooting the main villain of an arc from the back while he's in a beam struggle with someone else. Seriously. And again, I said before, Vegeta's not even my favorite character, but it makes no goddamn sense for how someone who trains just as much. So that's why I said that the writing's gotten lazier because you have to create organic reasons for why characters are weaker than others. You can't just say that these two people are, one stronger than the other one, despite them both training with the same people. No, not at all, Ruben. I don't even bother watching them at this point. Like the only one I was even experimenting with was One Piece, and they have an improved art style for the Wano arc, but pacing is still trash. Again, the manga is great, but I leave the show alone, especially since the English dub is 400 plus episodes behind. Still dubbing episodes that came out 10 years ago. I'll let them stay to themselves. No, I would never do that. Oh, that's right. You still haven't read any of this. I just realized that because I remember you had mentioned not reading the arc yet. You better start. I think we're going to wind down in a few months. You have some people who are speculating it'll be over with two more chapters. I don't know how they're even coming up with that. Uh, I don't. There doesn't seem, admittedly, to be that much left to do other than just have the fight begin next chapter. It's about three Yazunka guys that have to change to hide their identities. Well, do they transform? Because if they do, then that's just a gender swap. That's a lot different than you know. I now identify as this. Like that kind of the way you described it reminds me of Rama One Half, which was another property. I guess that's kind of like to Inuyasha what uh, Doctor Slump is to Dragon Ball, where it's a good or decent, if not better, series that gets overshadowed by the other one because they both have the same creator. So that's what that reminds me of. Just from the way you described it, I guess I might look into that later. I don't know. Just some wishful thinking. I don't even go on convention anymore because there's just this overwhelming tendency for the people on that forum to write all kind of stuff that I just do not. What's a good term for it? I'm really kind of past because what they say oftentimes gets disproven by their own series. So I saw some of them who said, "Oh, these other characters are going to get to do something because look at all the goons that Moro has around." And then what ended up happening? We had a bunch of different fights last chapter, and then the only two characters that actually got to have any fighting at all that was sustained were Krillin and Tien, whereas the rest of them had got bailed out by Goku, and even Krillin got bailed out too because he was fighting that blob chick, the fusion between the three female convicts, which was really stupid by the way because instead of spreading out each of those characters to have their own fight, you just have all of them merge into one. That's how you can tell this was rushed. Well, I'm glad you liked it, and unlike certain other people, I don't have to, what do you call it? As my retort, I don't have to play a bunch of clips without responding directly. Yeah, I know she used to be part of the GOP, but you got what I was saying, that Harris doesn't have any of the baggage, or at least any of the self-made baggage, like the fake ethnicity thing, and trying to lie on some school and the rest of that stuff. The sob story crap, basically. No, this was kind of just. It's not disappointing because I didn't expect any differently. When I saw that last page of 57, where Goku showed up, there was no doubt in my mind that he was going to at least take out like bail someone out of a fight. I was just really hoping that if they were smart, they'd play it like this because he was able to find Krillin from him powering up. So if they had Tien, Yamcha, and Shiatsu powering down because they're getting beat up, he couldn't find him, and then we could actually see them work together to take out that convict. But instead, we got one page of them fighting last chapter, technically two, I guess, and then we instantly have that battle end. Super 17 defeated yet? Well, you want me to stream the Super 17 arc? 17's in this arc. He just doesn't really get to do much of anything. Like he shows up and fights 7-3, which is basically the most memorable member of the villain's group, and then he gets knocked on his behind by the second in command, and then he's on like panel for maybe two. Yeah, he's in maybe three panels of this chapter. That was the funniest part. That Toyotaro apparently forgot that 18 and 17 were still there. He just drew Gohan and Piccolo fighting Saganbo, who I was really annoyed with the end result of him because we didn't even get to see him fight at all up until 57. So I was hoping that they would probably have him be defeated and then taken back to get healed or whatever. I just hate when they have some character that they just barely introduce or they kind of have her floating around, and then we don't get to really see them do much of anything other than serve the purpose of making someone else look good. So when he dies, it's just to show that Moro doesn't care about his prisoners or his soldiers rather. When if they were smart, they would have him pass out while he's using all this energy, and then be taken back to maybe later be used at some other point in the story. But again, that kind of forward thinking just doesn't exist with. That's why, and I don't mean to keep bringing the series up, but that's one of the reasons I like One Piece because very few characters in the present story die, so that the creator can use them again without having to come up with some BS for why they've been resurrected. And the way this series seems to be going is that it's trying to be a never-ending, continuous saga, and you can't have a story like that where you have to kill everybody off each arc, or otherwise you're going to run out of villains. They should make a crossover, spark interest with Dragon Ball again. I wouldn't say they run out of ideas; they just keep repeating the same obnoxious tropes. Like I was really into the idea of a villain where he can drain your energy, so the stronger you are doesn't really apply there. But they've taken so long to involve the rest of the cast, other than maybe Piccolo, and they're doing the same thing where they. How to explain this? There was a good opportunity to use the prisoners, the other members of Moro's group, in an effective way, and they kind of have just been there. They don't really get any characterization. They don't get to uh, have anything to do that doesn't really prop up some other character, and that gets on my nerves because there is no start and stop date for this. So theoretically, Toyotaro, who is the writer of this, has the option to make little inroads and develop people or give him a chapter to do something. He just refuses. He wants to have his pacing be all over the place. Ruben, if you ever do read this arc, you'll notice that when it starts, it's very, very slow. And then when it gets to maybe I think it's 51, breakneck pace. Like I thought we were still in Act One up until what was that, chapter 54? Because they have this thing where they refuse to show characters training. So you have the trio of Gohan, Piccolo, and Krillin swearing that they're going to train, and then instead of them showing that for maybe a chapter or some pages or so, we just immediately get cut to a couple months later, and now they're so powerful. Dragon Ball nowadays is this: Piccolo, Krillin, and Gohan get beat up by lackey villains. Vegeta defeats them, then loses to main villain, who later gets defeated by Goku. Other characters don't get any screen time other than cameos. Yeah, the only one they're really trying to use a little bit more now are the people who are in the Tournament of Power. So you'll see a little bit more of TN, you'll see a little more of the androids. But yeah, that core group of five has been there since the start of Z. And Ruben, do you remember I told you that I really hate the Kid Buu fight being the end of Z because those three aren't involved. Like, you're going to end the manga and then not have the main character's best friend, his son, who apparently was a major part of every arc of Z up until that point. You get what I'm saying? That just to have that be the final battle and to leave at least those three out was really stupid to me. But you know, Toriyama was sick of his own series, so he decided to kill everybody off in the last arc. Now, the only time that doesn't happen during an arc, Ruben, is probably the Garlic Jr. saga. You remember that filler saga where Goku isn't even there, and then Vegeta's just pretty much not there as well, other than some cameos. It got flipped on its head in that arc. They'll say, "Oh, how could you like that arc?" Like, at least they tried something different. And they still stole from that arc because GT had the mind control thing that the Blackwater Mist had. So it wasn't too bad. They not wasn't bad enough for them to rip it off. Yeah, they wasted a lot of characters. People were really excited for Yamcha to return, and we basically got maybe uh, what six pages of him in between three chapters. Yeah, I was glad they didn't make her stupid like in the show. Your favorite TFS parody arc. Remember, they actually did do a version where that what was it? I think it's 2.5 is the Kai episode where they actually show them fighting Garlic Jr. instead of Popo just sealing him up or beating him very easily. So I do agree with the overall point. I just think it's because of the overzealous focus on those two characters of Goku and Vegeta. That arc retroactively is just more interesting to me than a lot of the stuff we get now because there's only one Saiyan involved. I don't know. It feels like a return to Dragon Ball where yeah, Goku was supposedly stronger than everybody, but other people could still help and make a difference. It was pretty entertaining. They have a scene where they actually cut off. They're like getting all upset. I can't figure out how to end this. I thought it was entertaining. I would strongly endorse giving it at least a view because that's the thing now on their videos. People are spamming. I've watched this episode 50 times and I'm still laughing. It's all right, great. No, they wasted all kind of characters. The only character in this arc that they've treated, I would say, well, outside of Goku and Vegeta, has been Piccolo because he's been in was it like 8 chapters now, and they don't usually limit him. The only time he had a cameo was in the first one that he was in when his arc started. So he's been pretty decent in his role. I have to give him credit for that. And they've done all right with Gohan. They've done all right with Krillin. They've done, I would say, with Tien and horrible with, because at least they gave Tien a win in the previous chapter. And then right after that, he gets curb stomped by a person we've never heard of, who we don't even get to see actually fight anybody before Goku punches him in the stomach and takes him out one blow. DBZ got sabotaged by whiny otakus, and now they're the only ones in Japan who like DBZ. Japanese normies have gotten over DBZ and like original DB better. Dragon Ball makes the most profit in Mexico and other Hispanic countries. Yeah, the original was better than what came after it. I have to concede the validity of their liking of the initial half of the series. When I say initial half, I'm referring to the manga. How the first half is the original, and then Z is the second half. Yeah, I don't know who else have they wasted. Okay, so they've wasted all of Moro's soldiers other than 7-3, which is the one that they stole the design off Hit and gave him some spikes, and he can copy people's techniques by touching them. But other than him, the rest of the group is just kind of, they don't really do anything to stand out ever. Like, I've actually seen some diehard fans who can't even remember their names, and they've been in the series now for what, 6 or 7 months. Yeah, like it's just so disappointing because when I saw that first picture of them escaping from prison after Moro used his wish to let them all out, I was kind of excited. So, oh, this will be a good opportunity for the other characters to have some kind of fight. And other than Piccolo, Gohan, and Krillin, it never feels like it's enough because they don't really let any of them breathe before switching the focus back to Goku or Vegeta. I was actually shocked they didn't have Vegeta in this chapter. That's 2 chapters now where he hasn't been around. But the problem is, it's still, Goku sucking up screen time over anybody else. That's why I said this arc, after that first fight with Moro, where he basically takes them both down, and I think that was it's like 46, 47, not 47. Yeah, 47 is the one where Boo beats him up, and that before being put back to sleep. Uh, After that first encounter, this arc just gets 10 times more boring because it's just the Saiyans chase Moro, they try to beat him, it fails. He gets his wish, blah blah, and then only when we get to his soldiers going to Earth and Piccolo fighting them is when it got entertaining again. That's a running theme that usually when the apparent 2 lead characters are involved, it's boring. Hey Ruben, I've never seen any series like this where they put the leads on the screen. It's like, here we go again. Just imagine having such a diverse cast and you're so afraid to use anybody that's not one of those two. And that's what gets on my nerves about Piccolo. They should have had him show up earlier because they set the first couple of chapters on Namek. But instead of having him come over there and do something, they decided to keep him on Earth. So they find a billion different ways to disappoint. I don't know. I'm just betting that for the next chapter, it's going to be that Goku and Moro fight each other to a standstill, and then after Goku finds some way to screw it up, that's when Vegeta shows up with his new technique, and then we get I guess, a conclusion. But I've been wrong about the pacing of these chapters before. I think there was actually a person who, when the future Trunks arc was still going, was like, "Oh, we don't have enough material for 3 chapters," and then it did end up being 3 chapters or more, referring to the conclusion of that arc. You get my point that they find ways to stretch stuff out. I'm just kind of annoyed that we didn't get to see the other minions fight, at least, just for any continuous period. I just wanted one decent one-on-one battle for each of the characters, and we could have had that. But instead, we get a rushed, all over the place chapter with 57 that people just kind of celebrated because oh, other people are doing stuff. Yeah, but they're not being allowed to actually have it have any resonance. It's just, oh, I'm gonna fight this random person and I might do something cool here, and then the people that like me will say I was good in this arc. It's like, no, it's still crappy. You don't fool me. I mean, I think Ruben disappeared. He must have started reading this arc and become a fan of it and gotten angry and left. Now he's gonna rescind his support. He doesn't want to come over here anymore. I'm so disappointed. I was hoping he would stay and write things, and I'd be able to speak to him, but alas, it appears not to be the case. Man, you should have seen Twitter when that 56 dropped. Everybody, I'm still here, and I will never like anything Dragon Ball related post Z. Damn, not even the games. I mean, they have a lot of games that have come out after Z finished airing that I like. I don't know. I still. The thing is, after Z, it's like every arc. I can name things I like about it, but I can't say that I actually like it. About to say, damn, every game that came out after '93, throw it in the trash. Yeah, it's usually what I've seen, that a lot of people who are turned off by the series, or they like the games because they don't make you play as Goku the entire time. Well, except for Kakarot, which I don't know why that game is named that way. It was just really weird. No, but that's the thing. Every arc after the Boo arc, it has this thing where I can name parts of it I like, but I just can't say that it's something I actually enjoy because they screw up so much stuff in between that you can't get my full support. It's like meeting a broad who's pretty, but then all she does is drain your resources. Like, yeah, that person looks good, but all the interior stuff is just bad. It's awful. I really was hoping I could give this arc a fair shake because, uh, contrary to popular belief, I don't enjoy disliking the new material of a series I at one point had great affection for. It's just difficult to like that material when it feels the need to keep repeating the same cycles over and over. So with here, they had an interesting villain, or at least a villain with an interesting power. And I was kind of annoyed when they killed off his lackey, and then they replaced him with this group. But I was optimistic that maybe we could get some kind of development out of the other members of that group. And other than one of them, it's just been a bunch of people who show up to have a, I guess, decent design and get defeated either by Goku or some other character. I don't know, I'm starting to get flashbacks to the turn of the Universe 6 tournament where outside of Hit and Kaba, everybody else on both teams that wasn't a Saiyan just kind of felt flat and they didn't really do anything. So it all just is interconnected in the sense that it has a good premise, but its execution is just so poor. That's the thing I really liked about tournaments, that they guaranteed each character would have to have a fight, but it just, because of that battle royale that we had with the tournament of power, it's things like that where the details make it murkier for us to get the results that we'd like. That's why when the Term of the Power started, I was all just kind of disillusioned because I said that there was no way in hell they were going to develop even the majority of the people that were participating because they couldn't even do that when it was only 12 people or 10 characters or whatever for the Universe 6 tournament. So if they fail the smaller group, the larger one's going to get screwed too. See what else is here. Androids 1 to 7 and 9 to 12. Yeah, it would be cool if they use that as a reason to bring back Android 8 and 16 and have like a whole just arc about machines but they're not going to do anything like that. We just follow the same beat by beat steps where it's the same two characters that get a bunch of transformations. Everybody else might get maybe a fight or two and then play right into the game of hoping that it gets better. 9 to 12. I wouldn't be surprised they try to canonize 13. I mean, they already show with Broly, they don't have any shame. They'll bring back. I do love that one of the fans told me that it would be boring to bring back old villains. And then the last two movies have been about bringing back old villains. So both Resurrection F and Broly have been about taking some character that's old as hell and, you know, stitching them up for the new series or for the current stuff. Now, I remember people used to call Cell 21, so she took his nickname. There's an old site. I don't think it's been updated since maybe 2008 or sometime back then. Where well, we had that with Dragon Ball Online, where there was a story where I forgot what her name is. It's a blue version of Blue that's a chick that he made and reproduced with. I mean, I don't really have a problem with her, so I'd take her over the new Broly because I'm sick of Saiyans. All they do is bring in Saiyans. I even saw some people. Yeah, I'll take Cooler over Broly too. I saw some people who are actually saying, "I hope they bring Broly into the Moro arc. Why? So he can get uh, curb stomped to make Goku and Vegeta look." That's why I didn't want him. I That was one of the reasons why I didn't really. I won't say like the new version, but it's when you take every villain and basically change them to be an ally, you really limit yourself in terms of using the characters you already have. Like I see people who want Frieza to show up. Again, people were mentioning Broly. It's like these are villains, or at least they were anyway. I know that Frieza still apparently is, but it's like why can't we just have the core cast that's been there since the beginning of Z fighting new threats? I don't know why they need all these new allies. The only new ally they've introduced that I think is remotely interesting is Hit. The rest they can throw in the trash. But I fear I may be too late. I may be late. I mean, it is what it is. Okay, Broly fans wanted Broly back because they thought he could win this time, as if Toei was actually ever going to do that. Yeah, they're gonna keep sucking off the same character over and over. Now Megumi, me and Ruben were disagreeing because he said that he doesn't like 21, and I said, I don't mind her. I'm just sick of Saiyans. If you want to bring in some new people, as long as you give them development or something to do, I don't really have a problem with it. I'm just tired of the Saiyan show. Broly is a very popular meme in Japan. His fans changed the ending of his first movie, where he defeats Goku and Vegeta and wins. He does he beat them before they turn to Gogeta or what? Oh, people want him to show up too. Tell you, they pick all these different characters. They just want them to show up and just completely break any tension in the story. And it wouldn't even make sense. Why would Gogeta be brought in to fight an opponent who can just drain his energy? Well, that's what I said, Megumi, that I was looking forward to Vegeta having a new move, but they're apparently going to start the fight between Goku and Moro, so we're not probably going to see it until it's too late or something. I agree. We had 6 forms in Super, which I listed earlier. The God, the blue hair one, the one that Goku Black had with the pink hair, and the one that Trunks had, the Ultra Instinct form, the Royal Blue, whatever that thing was that Vegeta showed up with. Sick of them. They'll bring in all these new forms, but they won't make any new moves. Like with the Goku Black arc, where Goku was still using the evil containment wave, and like you're bringing back a move you should have learned 20 years ago, and it still didn't do anything. But we'll get Raditz Super Saiyan 3 eventually in somewhere, because someone's gonna, they can't pass up that design. Remember Megumi, Piccolo's the character with a bunch of different moves, but because he's not a Saiyan, they don't let him get to be the number 2 guy or the number 1 ever. That's what I thought was funny, where this guy was like, all the other characters are so old. I'm like, Piccolo's literally younger than everybody that other than Gohan. And he has eternal youth, which he inherited from his dad. So it's just, we're weird. Hell, if anybody should still be around kicking behind, it should be him, but whatever. I don't know why. And then what I think is so funny is they pretend like they can't just use the Dragon Balls to get younger. They can't just make a wish to restore them, to their prime or whatever. But I said people are really just fans, man. They come up with all kind of weird excuses for certain behavior. Yeah, if they ain't a Saiyan, they get tossed to the curb. And then with Vegeta, even if they are a Saiyan, the only thing they really get to do is be on screen and fight the main villain before Goku, to make the main villain look tougher than he already does. Still can't get over the guy that said Vegeta shows potential from time to time. And then I listed all the different instances of him getting beat up. If Cell gets brought back, then he should get Saiyan forms because he is part Saiyan. I would hope, it'd be great if he gets a gold form like Frieza, and then it has like the aura of blue, and he just starts smashing everybody to pieces. And we find out he's been training in hell for, however long it's been since the Cell arc. What else is here? If Cell gets brought back. All right, that's pretty much. Jesus Christ.
You better get a jacket.
All right, see you guys later.